This is the bit nobody really shows you in those fancy launch trailers for a phone. I'm not talking about the slow motion shots, not even the perfect lighting that makes everything look so good. I'm talking about the first hour after you buy a Chinese foldable, when you're sat there thinking, right, how much of this do I need to fix before it actually feels like my phone? Because this is the new Vivo X Fold 6. This is the 16GB RAM version with 512GB of storage in the blue hole color. I know some of it's probably lost in translation, but that's what it translates as. And in reality, this thing is ridiculous. We're talking a massive big battery, we'll get to that. Upgraded cameras, we'll definitely get to that. Better multitasking, a slim body, proper flagship stuff. But if the software experience is still messy outside of China, then all of that starts to fall apart really quickly, right? So today, we're doing this properly. I'm unboxing it. Well, I've unboxed it already, but you're going to see me unboxing it for you. Anyway, setting it up, installing Google, deleting the Chinese bloatware I don't want, testing the upgraded multitasking, and taking some real camera samples to see if Vivo has actually built the full package this time. Let's get into it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly if the Vivo X Fold 6 is just another beautiful Chinese foldable, and I'm talking beautiful, that takes way too much effort to live with, or if it's one of those rare imports that might actually be worth the headache. And trust me, the biggest surprise here wasn't the color, and it wasn't the hinge, it wasn't even the cameras. It was what happened when I started throwing apps all over this massive inner screen. Now yes, there's a decent chance Vivo is going to push out a global version of this in the next few months. I'm thinking around 3 months from now from what I read. But honestly, who's going to want to wait that long when the Chinese version's already here and looks this good and is packed with this much hardware? I know, dangerous logic, right? I've got issues. Inside the box, Vivo keeps things feeling nice and premium. You get the phone, we'll get to that in a sec, the charging brick, the cable, the paperwork, the SIM tool, and thankfully also an included case. I genuinely appreciate that, because when you import a foldable, especially one that isn't available locally, you kind of start to panic straight away, right? You're like, okay, where am I supposed to find a decent case on day one? And the good thing is, this isn't one of those cheap cases that you throw back in the box immediately. It's color matched to the actual phone itself, it's got hinge protection, and it's got this nice rubberized texture that gives you a bit of grip. So it does look good with the phone, actually complements the phone, and it makes the whole thing feel safer straight away. And those anxiety levels, well, mine anyway, way down. You lift this thing out, and the first thing I thought was, yep, blue hole, or whatever it's supposed to be called, was absolutely the right choice. I know it's blue, so I may be biased a little bit, but nah, it's the right choice. It's got this cool blue tone that looks really expensive and premium without trying too hard. Initially, I thought it was a little bit flashy when I took it out of the box, but after living with it for a few days, I haven't actually changed my mind. It actually looks pretty special. Visually, blue hole, as it translates on Google Translate, is the one I pick. There is a small catch though. This is also the heavier and thicker version. This model comes in at 235 grams, 9.9mm folded, and 4.8mm unfolded. The other two variations, Salt Lake and Polar Night, are both slimmer at 229 grams and 9.4mm folded and 4.4mm unfolded. So if you want the absolute thinness, X Fold 6, those are the better options. In the hand though, honestly, this feels so good. It's one of those phones where the number sounds a bit scary until you actually hold it. Yeah, it's definitely got presence. You're gonna know it's in your pocket, but it feels dense and premium, not heavy and awkward. It's actually quite well balanced, even with the camera bump. Folded, it feels like a serious flagship phone. Unfolded, it turns into this huge clean canvas that makes normal candy bar phones feel like a bit, you know, tiny. Like, is this what I've been using all this time? By the way, Vivo also ships it with screen protectors already applied on the inner and outer screen. So basically on day one, you can just take it out, set it up, and start using it. The hinge also feels very smooth. Nice resistance, no weird scraping, no nasty noises, opens flat, and opens at different angles for your viewing pleasure. Wait, is that weird? Overall, the hardware already gives you that reassuring feeling when you pick it up. It kind of tells you that Vivo hasn't just chased thinness and forgotten about strength. The displays look seriously impressive. You've got 6.51 inch outer screen and an 8.02 inch inner screen. Both can hit up to 5000 nits of peak brightness. Now let's be real for a second, that's peak brightness. That's not the brightness you can be living with every single day. The most useful thing is this. Thanks to this lovely UK heat wave, I've been using this thing already in some serious, brutal sunlight. And so far, readability has been absolutely fine. Both panels are 120Hz LTPO as well. And in low light, they both go down to 1 nit, which is great when you're using the phone at night, you know, reading. Okay, doom scrolling. But regardless, 1 nit, so your eyes are going to catch a break. Speaking of eyes, Vivo has also packed in a bunch of eye care feature. On the inner display specifically, you get 1920Hz PWM dimming to help reduce flicker and eye fatigue. I still haven't found out what the official PWM figure is for the outer display, so I'm going to keep looking and let you know in my next video about it when I do the comparison. The real reason you buy this thing is the inner screen, right? You open it up, and it genuinely feels like you pulled out a mini tablet out your pocket. Reading articles, checking photos, managing files, watching YouTube, split screen apps. We'll get to multitasking, don't worry. This is where foldables still feel a bit magical even though we've had so many now. And the crease, yeah, it's still there. Welcome to foldables, I guess. If the light catches it at the right angle, you're gonna see it. But actually running your finger over it, you barely feel it. It's not on the same level as the Oppo Find N6, because that's just seems to be leagues ahead of everyone. But it's better than the Honor Magic V6. I think we're finally getting to a point where the crease isn't a real distraction in everyday use. And trust me, I've been using it for a few days and foldables for the last however long. Once you start using this thing and the crease is this good, you're just going to forget about it in everyday use. So don't worry about it. Now we get to the part that actually matters if you're thinking about importing this phone. Because when you boot up a Chinese ROM device, there's always that tiny moment of dread, right? You're looking at all the Chinese apps, the Chinese services, Chinese notifications, and your brain just goes, oh wow, okay, I actually need to clean this up. The good news is Vivo actually makes this pretty easy. All you have to do is go to settings, into user and accounts, sign into your Google account and enable Google basic services. The place there was already sitting waiting for me. I opened it up, already signed me in, which made the whole setup feel way less painful than I expected. From there, I just downloaded the usual stuff, right? Gmail, Maps, Photos, YouTube, all the other apps I normally use on a day-to-day basis. I started changing the default app straight away. So from the browser, I changed it to Chrome. Gboard was probably the first thing I changed as well. Once you've done the default apps, that's basically mostly it. There's only one more step to kind of make it feel like your own. Now it comes to deleting the Chinese apps. Just go through the phone, look at anything that you remotely can't read, unless you obviously speak Mandarin, but anything that's not English, and just delete. Takes about two minutes to do everything. The weird thing is, once all the clutter is gone, the device actually just feels cleaner, faster, and honestly, I feel calmer, which probably says a lot more about me than the phone probably. This model comes with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage, which for foldables is exactly how I'd like to buy it. There are other variations of course, ranging from 12 gigabytes of RAM to 1 terabyte of storage, but this is how I like to buy my phone with 16 gigabytes of RAM, just for future proofing, you know? Vivo has also paired it with the Dimensity 9500, wait for it, Super Edition, which is meant to improve the NPU, boost the multitasking efficiency, and help with the thermals as well. So in theory, that should mean less throttling when you're gaming hard, editing on the big screen, or just hammering the phone with loads of apps at once. Add UFS 4.1 storage on top, and really, there's no excuse for this thing to feel slow. Apps open fast, animations feel smooth, the outer screen and inner screen is snappy. And when I started getting greedy with multitasking, the phone just kept going. Speaking of multitasking, this is where Vivo has actually impressed me. The X Fold 6 runs OriginOS 6 Fold, and one of the big features here is called Atomic Workbench. It supports running 4 apps in the foreground with fast switching between the main window and smaller Atomic windows, plus drag and drop between the apps. So this is the bit I was most curious about because every foldable loves talking about productivity, right? And I've shown you quite a few on the folds I've done already. Here though, it actually feels useful. I had YouTube, Notes, Chrome and Maps open. And instead of it feeling cramped, I actually found it quite useful. Dragging between apps feels good. Resizing windows is smooth and easy. And jumping back and forth is quick. Now, I'm not going to get silly and say this is going to replace my laptop for everything because it won't and it doesn't. Even with my trusty Nilkin foldable keyboard in blue, I like to add, which I use for productivity. But on the go for emails, planning, writing notes, checking references, comparing images, managing files, all that kind of stuff that you want to do on your candy bar phone, but don't have the right multitasking tool, I definitely see that this isn't a party trick anymore. This actually feels like a portable workspace. Now, let's talk battery, because this is one of those specs that makes you stop and look twice. This has a massive 7,000 mAh battery. That's massive for a foldable. You also get 80 watts wired charging and 40 watts wireless charging. Nice combination, right? But the battery setup is kind of wild when you look at foldables where we were not that long ago. I mean, even last year, Vivo X Fold 5 was already a big deal because it was the first foldable to hit 6,000 mAh batteries. Now, Vivo has pushed things even further with the 7,000 mAh battery on the X Fold 6. And if we don't count the 7,150 mAh battery on the 1TB version of the Honor Magic V6, which is only available in China, this is the first foldable that gives you 7,000 mAh battery across all versions, not just one top-end model. So I think for that tiny bit of extra thickness compared to some other competitors, I'll happily take the 7,000 over anything else out there. Obviously, I'll give it more time before I give you a proper battery verdict, but early signs over the last few days definitely been promising. With mixed outer screen and inner screen use, this feels like it has the kind of endurance that lets you stop checking the battery like every hour. And I think that should encourage me to actually use the inner screen more, because that's the whole point of a foldable, right? Now, the upgraded camera system. Vivo has gone much harder this year than I would have thought they would. You're getting a 200 megapixel main camera, a 50 megapixel ZEISS super telephoto camera, and a 50 megapixel ultra wide. The phone also supports up to 100 times digital zoom, optical image stabilization on the main and telephoto cameras, and up to 8K video recording if you like doing that. It isn't some polite foldable. It feels like Vivo are actually walking in and going, we need to compete properly with what's out there currently. So anyway, I took it out and grabbed a bunch of first impression quick samples to show you. So in daylight, the main camera is doing what you expect it from an expensive Vivo phone, right? Plenty of detail, punchy contrast, good dynamic range, and the usual Vivo color science, right? Where the photos look pretty much ready to post if you do that without needing lots of editing. Now the ultra wide colors feel fairly consistent as well, which I kind of appreciate. The telephoto lens, however, is the lens I was most excited about. It's got good reach, solid details, and most importantly, it doesn't feel like Vivo have actually thrown out a filler lens just to show you that they can put 3 cameras on a foldable. Portraits, by the way, also look quite strong. I've not seen the waxy textures that you get on faces from over-processing. I think the X Fold 6 seems to keep that balance pretty well, but I'm gonna have to test it more. And obviously night shots are gonna need deeper testing as well. But early signs are definitely good. The camera system feels upgraded in a way you can actually notice. So I'm gonna ask that question again. Is it actually fun to use? And honestly, yes. So far, Very much yes. The outer screen is slightly wider like the Honor Magic V6, so typing with two hands doesn't actually feel too cramped. The inner screen looks and feels absolutely amazing. The blue hole color, well, you know how I feel about the color, right? The software cleanup wasn't painful as I thought. Setting up Google, changing the default apps, also deleting Chinese bloatware was done in under 10 minutes. And the multitasking on this, genuinely useful. The cameras also, at least early on, also feel like they belong on a premium device. Now, I'm not crowning this thing foldable king after one unboxing and spending a few days with it. That would be silly, right? I still need more time with notifications, long-term battery behavior, camera consistency, heat management, how reliable all the multitasking feels after a few weeks. But first impressions, this is probably one of those Chinese foldables that I've imported that kind of tick most of the boxes for a foldable. The Vivo X Fold 6 feels like Vivo obviously understood the assignment, right? Don't just make it thin, don't just make it expensive, don't just throw a fancy color on it, although I do like that part. Make it useful. And that's why I like it so far. The hardware pulls you in, but the software decides whether you actually keep reaching for it. And so far, I've definitely been reaching for this. This time with this foldable, the setup process was reasonable, the cleanup was worth doing, changing the default apps made it feel normal very quickly. The multitasking upgrade actually gives a big screen a proper reason to exist. Then you add a massive battery and a camera system that sounds like it could be one of the best foldables we've seen this year. Right, I need your help. Drop me a comment in below letting me know if I should compare the Vivo X Fold 6 to the Oppo Find N6 or the Honor Magic V6. Now, depending on what you guys say, my next video on the Vivo X Fold 6 will do one of those comparisons. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you liked this video, and if you did, make sure you hit like and subscribe because it definitely helps the channel. And if you look behind me, that's not a Vision Pro, that's the Samsung Galaxy XR headset. It's one of the first ones that shipped with Android XR. So if you want to see that video, make sure you hit subscribe because that's definitely coming up pretty soon. I'm Maz, and this is MazTechCentral, where I like to keep tech simple and accessible for everyone. Take care, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.